Gustav and Queen Sylvia with Crown Princess Victoria and Prince Daniel have arrived, as well as Carl-Henrik Kjeldin and Lars Heikensten took their seats. And now we will hear March in D major by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, which is the music that is played when the laureates enter the stage. Everybody rises for the laureates. First in line is Gérard Moreau, physics laureate, followed by his physics colleague laureate Donna Strickland. Frances Arnold, one of this year's chemistry laureates, with George Smith and Sir Gregory Winter by her side to the right, also chemistry laureates. And then we have James Allison and Tasuko Honyo, this year's medicine laureates. And to the far right there we have William Nordhaus and Paul Romer, economics. All in all, 12 laureates this year, including the Peace Laureates Denis Mukwege and Nadia Murad, who earlier today received the Peace Prize in Oslo.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, esteemed Nobel laureates, ladies and gentlemen,
Carl-Henrik Kjeldin,
on
chairman
behalf of the
of the
Nobel
board.
Foundation, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you all to this year's Nobel Prize Award ceremony. In particular, I would like to welcome the Nobel laureates and their families to this ceremony. Earlier today in Oslo, Denis Mukwege and Nadia Murad were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to end the use of sexual violence as a weapon of war and armed conflict. Through this prize, the Norwegian Nobel Committee reminds us that human rights must include also rights of women. Too often, women have been violated in conflicts as a way of disrupting a society. Words cannot describe the horrors that Nadia Murad has lived through, but we should be grateful that she has decided to share her story with us as a call for action. Dr. Denis Mukwege has likewise shown exceptional courage and persistence when he, at great personal risk, has alleviated the suffering of so many women in the Congo. Alfred Nobel's vision was to reward those who have made the greatest benefit to humankind in science, literature, and peace, and thereby have contributed to a better world. Undoubtedly, the world has, in many ways, become a better place since the end of the 19th century when Alfred Nobel lived. However, in recent years, we have unfortunately seen new dangerous tendencies on the rise. While the Paris Agreement is a sign that the question of global warming is taken seriously, it is deeply worrying that influential world leaders are denying the connection, despite of overwhelming scientific evidence, between our lifestyle and climate change, and preventing the necessary actions from being taken. Also in other fields, we see that facts, observations, and information are distorted or ignored. We see how nationalism and isolationism are increasing, with restrictions in trade, cultural exchange, and movement across borders. Together, this endangers the world as we know it. Science offers a counter-movement to the isolationistic and fact-resistant tendencies we see. It has no borders, and scientists often move between countries. Science is our time's lingua franca and can form bridges between countries and cultures. The importance of research is therefore not only limited to the generation of new knowledge, but it serves a more general role, providing a common ground for interactions between people all over the world. Moreover, modern science does not only involve skeptical inquiry, but is also often led by an ethos of openness and tolerance. Today, we do not only celebrate the Nobel Prize. It is also 70 years ago that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by the United Nations, and 50 years since René Cassin received the Nobel Peace Prize for his work with the Declaration. This serves to remind us that one of the reasons that modern society has progressed is that it has created a set of institutions and instruments that formalize this progress. Human rights is one of these, as is science and democracy. But again, we cannot take this to a time ruled by ignorance, prejudice, and barbarism. The now more than 900 Nobel laureates and their achievements are a source of inspiration to us all. Via well-visited museums in Stockholm and Oslo, various events in different countries, and through our digital channels with millions of followers, we are reaching out to all over the globe to tell their stories. To further enhance our outreach activities, we have been working hard with support from the Erling Persson Family Foundation and the Knut and Alice Wallenberg Foundation and many other donors to achieve a Nobel Center in the heart of Stockholm. We would like to take this opportunity to thank them, as well as the architects, David Chipperfield and Christoph Felger, for their support and commitment. Despite the setback we now had with the decisions taken by the new ruling majority in Stockholm, we are prepared to continue to work for this idea. It is simply too good to be stopped. However, given what has happened, we have to be clear. If Stockholm is going to get a Nobel Center, strong, concrete and reliable support from the City of Stockholm as well as from the government of Sweden will be needed. Scientific breakthroughs of the kind we honor today are fostered by creating strong environments and by giving excellent scientists freedom, independence, and long-term funding. Such creative milieus become fertile for new ideas through being open to a diversity of skills, experiences, and cultural backgrounds, and through letting young scientists speak their mind. In strong scientific environments, the focus is often on basic research, that is, curiosity-driven research, which does not aim at solving a practical problem, but only aims at answering interesting and important questions. Max Planck, the 1918 Nobel laureate in physics, went so far as to say, "Scientific discovery and scientific knowledge have been achieved only by those who have gone in pursuit of it without any practical purpose whatsoever in view." Remarkably, however, many basic research discoveries have later on been proven to have practical usefulness, often in unexpected areas. In this way, advances in basic science becomes part of the progress that Alfred Nobel wished to see. The production of new knowledge thus joins the struggle for human rights in these awards, which we hope can inspire, in particular young people, to make even more remarkable contributions for the benefit of humankind. Thank you for listening, and once again, most welcome to this year's Nobel Prize award ceremony.
Said Carl-Henrik Helldin, chairman of the board of the Nobel Foundation, before the first prizes are to be handed over by His Majesty the King. And the first laureate to receive it will be Gérard. But first, some music by Claude Debussy, French composer. Claude Debussy's Clair de Lune, perhaps especially appreciated by this year's physics laureate, Gérard Moreau, also from France, born in 1944 in Albertville, who at the time of affiliation worked at École Polytechnique in Palaiseau in France. And a speech now about this prize.
Eders kungliga högheter, ärade Nobelpristagare, mina damer och herrar.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Ljus från solen är en
sunlight is essential to life on Earth.
och något som
We're
vi
getting
blir
better and better at
på
harnessing
att
its
tillvarata
energy.
som energi. Vi använder
We
också
also
ljus
use
på
light in
många
many
andra
other
sätt.
ways, today
Idag
often
ofta
employing a
med
laser as the light
som
source.
ljuskälla.
Två
exempel på det senare
lasers in
hämtade
everyday
från
use
vardagen
are
är
barcode readers
streckkodsläsare
and laser
och
pointers.
laserpekare.
This
Nobelpriset i
year's Nobel
fysik
Prize in
hedrar
Physics
i år
honors two
två
inventions in
uppfinningar
laser
inom
physics
laserfysiken
that have
som
led
öppnat för
to
nya banbrytande
path-breaking new
sätt
ways
att
of using
använda
light.
ljus. Dessa metoder har
These
gett oss
methods have
verktyg
given us light-based
baserade på
tools
ljus
with
som
applications in
används
medicine
inom
and
bland
other
annat
fields.
medicin. Arthur Ashkin
is being rewarded for the invention of optical tweezers and their application to biological systems. This invention is based on the ability of light to exert a force on matter known as radiation pressure. The possibility of using light via this force to move physical objects may make one think of Star Trek and tractor beams and sound like pure science fiction. Of course, we can feel that sunbeams carry energy, they make us warm, but we cannot feel any small push. The force of the sunlight is too weak to do so. The starting point that led Ashkin to this optical tweezer was an experiment aimed at showing that the radiation pressure in an intense laser beam is actually strong enough to move microscopic particles. As it turned out, laser light could not only move such particles, but could also be made to grab them by focusing the beam with the help of a lens. This marked the birth of the optical tweezers, an elegant tool that has gained a broad range of applications and that lets us hold on to and move objects such as living cells without touching them. Ashkin's method has been successfully used to investigate various components of biological cells, among other things providing us with knowledge about the mechanics of tiny molecular motors that perform vital work inside these cells. Gérard Moreau and Donna Strickland are being rewarded for an invention called chirped pulse amplification, or CPA. This is a method for creating extremely intense short pulses of laser light. Efforts to create more intense laser pulses had been underway since the first laser was built in 1960. But by the mid-1980s, these experiments had reached an impasse, since the intensity of the laser light destroyed the amplifying material itself. Using their CPA technique, Moreau and Strickland were able to get around this limitation. Their strategy was simple and elegant. First, stretch out the laser pulse in time, thereby reducing its intensity and allowing it to be amplified. Finally, compress the pulse again to its original length of time, but now with much higher intensity. This method changed the landscape of research about high-intensity lasers from something that had been carried out in a few large laboratories to something that could be done in many places around the world, leading to a powerful surge in development work. The pursuit of shorter and shorter pulses has enabled researchers to move closer to the attosecond level, which means 1/1000th of a billionth of a second. This opens the way for studying the movements of electrons in atoms and molecules. Numerous applications of laser pulses are being made possible by the CPA technique. One example is eye surgery for correcting nearsightedness, in which laser pulses serve as ultra-precision surgical tools.
Dr. Erskine, Professor Moreau, Professor Strickland, you have been awarded the 2018 Nobel Prize in Physics for your groundbreaking inventions in the field of laser physics. On behalf of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, it's my honor and great pleasure to convey to you our warmest congratulations. I now ask you to step forward to receive your Nobel Prizes from the hands of His Majesty the King. I welcome Professor Michael Erskine to receive the prize on behalf of his father, Arthur Erskine.
That was the presentation speech by Professor Anders Irbeck, member of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. One wonders what the king might be saying now. Perhaps say hello to your father. He's probably watching this. Michael Erskine, son of Arthur Erskine, receiving this year's physics prize. Michael Erskine, himself a professor of arts. Gérard Moreau, born in France, also receives his prize. Donna Theo Strickland, born in 1959 in Ontario, Canada, receives her part of the 2018 Nobel Physics Prize. Now some music by Charles T. Griffiths. We will hear soloist Christina Nilsson and the Royal Stockholm Philharmonic Orchestra. The piece is The Lament of Ian the Proud from the 3 poems of Fiona MacLeod. After that musical interlude, the prize award ceremony will continue with a presentation of the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Speech by Professor Sara Snogerup Linse, who is a member of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences and member of the Nobel Committee for Chemistry.
Eders Majestäter,
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, esteemed Nobel laureates,
damer och herrar.
ladies and gentlemen.
Vi människor,
We humans believe we know everything.
men ibland
Sometimes it may be more fruitful to acknowledge our incompetence
och lita på
and trust the
naturens
superior
överlägsenhet.
performance of Mother Nature.
Ett litet mått av slump.
An element of chance can work wonders in the lab.
Precis
Just like
som
in
i
everyday
övriga
life,
livet går det
the
bättre
level of
om man
success
tillåter sig att
may be higher if one allows oneself the luxury of good luck.
Evolutionen har under miljarder
Evolution has
år
over a billion of years
slipat på naturen.
adapted and refined the chemistry of life.
Så att olika
This allows
organismer
various
kan
organisms to
samexistera
coexist
och
and
frodas
thrive in all sorts
på
of
alla
possible
möjliga
and seemingly
och till
impossible
synes omöjliga
environments.
platser.
In nature,
I naturen
evolution
har
has no
evolutionen
plan.
ingen plan.
changes that make an organism better adapted to its environment increase the chances for survival, and new improvement can be added over generations to
föras
come.
vidare. Och nya förändringar kan läggas till i kommande generationer.
Frances Arnold had a defined plan when she set up directed evolution in her laboratory. She wanted to make a greener chemical industry and produce biofuels in a sustainable way.
På ett mer miljövänligt sätt.
Frances Arnold harnessed the power of evolution and made it a versatile tool for improving nature's own catalysts, enzymes. She also made it possible to create new biocatalysts that can speed up reactions not seen in nature.
Som inte har någon motsvarighet i naturen.
Time after time, through smart combinations of knowledge and chance, she created enzymes that are for the greatest benefit of humankind. The proteins in nature can also make wonders by interacting and intriguing. George Smith developed a method to create very large collections of similar proteins, and then using a molecular bait, he could fish out the members of the collection that were most strongly attracted to the bait. He constructed his method so that every protein carries with it the recipe for its own production. This feature makes it easy to make new copies of the best proteins and engage them in a tighter competition for the bait.
Och sen låter man dem tampas i en ny, mycket tuffare tävling om metkroken. Gregory Winter
sharpened the fishing tools for the development of pharmaceuticals. Antibodies are large and complex molecules.
Antikroppar är stora, komplexa proteiner. Men Gregory Winter valde
But Winter chose to work with a small fragment that carries all the variations seen among natural antibodies.
naturliga antikroppar.
The result became a powerful method for deriving new antibodies for diagnostics and treatment. Antibodies with high precision can adhere strongly and persistently to other molecules or cell surfaces to facilitate or interfere with their duties.
Francis Arnold, George Smith, and Gregory Winter. Your work has led to the development of enzymes for a greener chemistry and antibodies that save lives. That's a truly great achievement. On behalf of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, I wish to convey to you our warmest congratulations. May I now ask you to step forward and receive your Nobel Prizes from the hands of His Majesty, the King.
First to receive the prize is Francis Arnold of the California Institute of Technology in Pasadena, United States, who receives 1/2 of this year's chemistry prize for the directed evolution of enzymes. And the other half is jointly awarded to George Smith of University of Missouri in the United States. Who receives it jointly with Sir Gregory Winter of the MRC Laboratory of Molecular Biology at Cambridge, UK, for the phage display of peptides and antibodies. Enjoy some more music. The Allegretto Amorevole from the Symphony in C minor by composer Alice Mary Smith. chemistry laureate Frances Arnold, her cancer was actually she was one of the first to have it cured by her laureate colleague Gregory Winter's method. And this year's medicine prize is definitely about cancer therapy. Now we will hear the presentation speech by Claes Kärre.
Kungliga högheter, ärade pristagare, mina damer och herrar. Cancer,
one of the greatest scourges of humanity, is caused by the uncontrolled proliferation of diseased cells that can spread in the body and form metastases. Cancer therapy has been based on 3 pillars: surgery, radiotherapy, and drugs that attack cancer cells. Today, more than 2/3 of cancers are cured, but the disease still claims millions of lives every year. There's a great need for new forms of therapy, and for a long time, researchers have pinned their hopes on the possibility of utilizing our immune system, which normally protects us against infections. The immune system is based on a diversified array of instruments in the form of various cells and molecules. Each of them has its own special sound and technical requirements to get them to work, a bit like the instruments in the orchestra here today. The fundamental task of the immune system is to distinguish between foreign cells and react against them, and the body's own cells, which it must leave in peace. T cells, the kind of white blood cells that act, among other things, as killer cells, use a special instrument called a receptor to identify cancer cells as foreign. By the 90s, cancer immunology researchers had shown that T cells will then react, but unfortunately in a much too timid way. Let's ask the orchestra to illustrate. Beautiful and clear, but alas, so short, slow, and weak. Playing andante and pianissimo was not enough to eliminate cancer cells. This year's Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine goes to 2 researchers who discovered how we can release the brakes that hold back the immune system, thereby mobilizing it for cancer therapy. Both laureates are immunologists, but neither was actually a cancer researcher from the beginning. This story therefore illustrates something important, the unexpected benefits of basic research. In the mid-90s, Jim Allison was working in a field of research that identified gas pedals that amplify the reaction of T cells, but also a brake pedal that weakened it. He tested the very bold idea of releasing the brake pedal by using antibodies to trigger T-cell reactions against cancer. He began by curing cancer in mice. Then he worked step by step to develop this therapy for humans. He called it checkpoint inhibition. In the first clinical studies of a malignant melanoma, some patients responded dramatically. Even in patients with a disease all over their bodies, the metastases shrank away and disappeared. Tascohonyo had already discovered a new molecule on T cells in the early 90s. Through many years of systematic work, he was able to show that it serves as another braking mechanism in the immune system. Inspired by Allison, he showed that blocking this brake also triggered attacks on cancer cells in mice, and that it worked in a new way. Honyo suggested that his might be developed into a powerful cancer therapy. Clinical researchers were later able to confirm his hypothesis. This form of checkpoint inhibition leads to responses in more patients and also works against traditional forms of cancer. Let's get a preview how the immune system orchestra sounds when we release the brakes. the way to go.
Allegro e
Allegro e
fortissimo.
fortissimo. That was a bit different, the way it should sound. By orchestrating the immune system in the right way, it has proved possible to control or eliminate the disease in tens of thousands of patients. Many are still tumor-free and after more than 5 years. This new pillar of cancer therapy is already solid, and the laureate's discoveries have inspired a whole new field of research. Like the Carmen Overture, it promises an exciting future.
Professors Allison and Honjo, your groundbreaking research has added a fourth pillar in cancer therapy. It represents a new paradigm for treatment, not directly targeting the cancer cells, but rather releasing the brakes of the immune system. Your seminal discoveries constitute a landmark in the fight against cancer for the benefit of numerous patients and all humankind. On behalf of the Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institutet, I wish to convey to you our warmest congratulations. May I now ask you to step forward to receive the Nobel Prize from the hands of His Majesty the King.
First, James Allison. He will receive half of the prize. Allison of the University of Texas in the United States. The other half of the prize to Tasuku Honjo at the Kyoto University in Kyoto, Japan. Some more music, not the Carmen Overture, but we will hear Dich teure Halle, Elizabeth's Greeting, from Tannhäuser by Richard Wagner. Once again with soloist Christina Nilsson.
Eders Majestäter, Eders Kungliga Högheter, ärade pristagare, mina damer och herrar. Årets ekonomipris handlar om ekonomisk tillväxt på lång sikt. Och
So, is economic growth exciting? Do a few percent of growth here or there really matter? And anyway, in the long run, we're all dead? Economic growth has been almost non-existent throughout most of human history. But a couple of centuries ago, this began to change. My grandfather, Arne, was born in 1900 and saw the world around him change radically during the course of his long life. Over the decades and centuries, a few percent of growth each year can revolutionize our standard of living. But growth does not occur everywhere. It does not just arrive like manna from heaven, given equally to everyone on earth. Sometimes it can even go backwards, so that living standards actually fall. Why is this? What drives growth? How long can it continue? And can we deal with increasingly obvious downsides of growth? Greenhouse gas emissions are changing for the first time in our history the climate of our entire world. Growth and new technology have given humankind the power to reshape our living conditions, and not just for us, but for all life on the planet. How should we use this power in a way that doesn't risk the welfare of future generations? These are thought-provoking questions, and the answers are absolutely vital. Once one starts to think about them, it's hard to think about anything else. This year's laureates, William Nordhaus and Paul Romer, have given us entirely new tools for investigating fundamental questions about the causes and consequences of growth. Paul Romer laid the foundation of what we now call endogenous growth theory. This sees new ideas as motors for growth, but its focus is not on scientific progress like written language and mathematics, or revolutionary inventions like the compass and printing press. Of course, these ideas are amazingly important, but we were not enough to start a sustained growth. Instead, Romer's theory focuses on how economic motivation drives a continual flow of new ideas that are created by entrepreneurs and businesses. But ideas are not like other goods. Many people can use one and the same idea at the same time. Still, the problem is that if an idea is freely available to anyone, then you can't earn money from it. Romer's growth theory shows how intelligent market regulation, a patent system, creates the right conditions for sustained global growth. William Nordhaus realized that a broad analysis of climate change and what to do about it requires us to bring together insights from physics, chemistry, and economics. This was how he built the first integrated assessment model for global warming. It describes how economic activity causes greenhouse gas emissions, how these gases spread through the atmosphere, how this changes the climate, and to close the circle, how the climate influences the economy and welfare now and in the future. Nordhaus's model explains the best way for us to approach the climate problem, namely by putting a price on emissions, such as through a carbon tax. High enough emissions prices also steer technological development towards more sustainable power provision, linking together the contributions of Nordhaus with those of Romer. It is probably in human nature to think about and plan for the future, even after our own lives have ended. This is a good thing, because if we do not think about our future, we cannot have one.
Dear Professor Nordhaus, dear Professor Romer, your research has given us deep insights into the causes and consequences of climate change and technological innovation. The tools you have developed broaden the scope of economic analysis allowing us to think about the future in new and better ways. It's an honor and a privilege to convey to you, on behalf of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, our warmest congratulations. I now ask you to receive your prizes from His Majesty the King.
The Economics Prize was not originally in the will of Alfred Nobel. It was established in 1968, celebrating 50 years then. But this is the 49th time it's being given to scientists within economics. First to receive it is William Nordhaus at Yale, of Yale University. For his DICE model, his model that makes it possible to put a price on climate change. And Paul Romer, a guru within research of economic growth, affiliated at the New York University. And this was the last prize awarded today, since there is no literature prize this year due to the problems in the Swedish Academy, the literature awarding institution. So hereby we end the 2018 Nobel Prize Award ceremony with the Swedish national anthem.